Welcome to Horse Matchmakers, a podcast made to help first-time horse buyers navigate the horse buying process with confidence. We cover everything from what you need in a horse to understanding what ads are really saying, everyday scams to perfect prospects so you can match the right horse for you. If you haven't been here before, you may be wondering why exactly do we even need a podcast like this? People lie, scam, all to make a quick buck. It makes quite a bit of sense whenever you recognize that the horse industry is a multi-million-dollar industry. So why wouldn't you lie to get a buzz? Because you're a good person. But regardless, today's episode is all about the step-by-step of looking for a horse, finding and then evaluating the horse, and the steps you must take to make sure you are not scammed. Let's jump right in. The first step is evaluating whether or not you're ready for a horse. I have an entire podcast episode about this, episode 1, season 1, but here is a real quick review. Your trainer is someone with loads of horse experience, says you're ready, you've been riding for longer than a year, and you can afford the horse. I would recommend listening to the first episode and really going over what you need in detail. Being ready is one of the most important steps in buying a horse. The next step is deciding what horse do you need. What type of lesson horse do you enjoy? Do you like the shorter horse or the taller horse, the faster paced horse or the slower horse? Do you like a horse that takes a bit more work to kick up or a little bit more work to slow down? Think about these traits so you know when to pass on a horse. Also, which ones you don't necessarily love, but you don't mind, so you just know what your line is. You don't want a horse that takes 80 trillion minutes to get to kick up, but you also don't want a horse that you have to slow down all the time. So you know whenever you do a test ride, that's not the horse for you. Next up is whether you are sport specific or just a trail rider / occasional play dayer. If you have a specific sport, you can look within said sport and that can help you find a good horse. You should also look at horses that work similar sports. For example, a former roper is a good barrel prospect. They both run out of gates quick and their jobs are over quick as well. Think about the experiences each sport gives a horse and how it's similar to one another. A hopsticle course can be a good police horse. Follow the logic to find what perimeters you need to search with them. I recommend making a list, writing what traits your sport has, and then going online and researching what other traits that other sports have so that you can match up. The other thing you need to know is your minimum height requirement for the horse you're searching for. This just gives you a search perimeter. So if you find a perfect horse that's 0.1 hands under your thing, you can still go try it out and see whether or not you think that horse will be good for you. It's just something to keep in mind as you're searching. So if you are 5 foot and under, ponies are okay, which is 14.2 hands and under. If the horse is shorter than you, then you're probably too tall. You can always go taller. Though for beginners, I would recommend staying under 16.2 hands. It's just a bit more horse, so it's easier to stay under that. So 5 foot to 5 foot 6 inches, you want to do the top of the 14 hands, and 15 hands is the minimum. So 5 foot 7 inches to 5 foot 11 inches, 15.1 hands is the minimum. If you can ride a 15.1 hand if you're 6 foot, but if you're going to compete, try and stay in the 16 hand range. There are some exceptions. If you are tall and very light, you can ride a smaller horse, etc. It really does depend on you. These are just some basic guidelines on what to look for. Like I said before, if you find the perfect horse at 15 hands and you're 6 foot, then 0.1 hands isn't that huge of a deal. You just need to make sure that you're not super planning to compete, then it is a big deal. You also need an age minimum and an age maximum. So if you're planning to compete, 20 and under is your age range. If you're a beginner, then you're going to want to go 7 and up, so 7 to 20. That's about a competitive range. Anybody above the 20-year-old range is an older horse moving into retirement. I personally have a barrel racing 24-year-old, and that's because I've had him since he was 18 and kept him in competitive shape. But all this to say, don't buy a 21-year-old trail horse to turn into a barrel horse. That is not there. If you don't have lots of experience, 6 and above is your age range. I consider anything 6 and under to be a green horse. You will have to be a teacher far more than an older horse. They can be quite a bit to handle. Next up is the search. So with the stuff we just talked about, you now have some guidelines to know what to search for. I'd recommend putting in a minimum $2,000 budget as well. It helps get rid of the cheapest of the cheap horses. Those almost always have more issues. As a beginner, I would not face the $1,000 horse or the free horse. When you find an ad that has what you're looking for, evaluate it for signs of a horse trader. So one of the biggest signs is adjectives. If they describe a horse in 80 different ways, other than just one little quick hook in the beginning, that's fine. It's a huge red flag towards a horse trader. So here's an example that I actually read on a real ad. Copper rides smooth as butter and as sharp as glass. What? If that's the first line, that's fine. It's kind of weird, but it's not necessarily pointing directly towards horse trader. But if that isn't the first line and there's 100 other lines that have similar adjectives and metaphors like that, horse trader. Other signs are tragedies that don't affect the horse at all. Dozens of horses for sale on the person's profile. That same horse being listed twice under different names or more than twice. I once saw 10 ads for a single horse, all under different names with different stories. The ad listing, like the entered information that they write above that gives the search engine on the website what to give you for, has different information than what they wrote in the ad listing. All that mixed with like a low price for what they're promising the horse is a horse trader. Once you find a horse ad that matches with everything you need, and hopefully a few things you want, it's time to message the seller. So first up, you're going to want to tell them that you're very interested in the horse and fill in some blanks from the ad. If you're messaging the seller, let's just hop into this real quick. Make sure you're willing to pay the full price that they have listed. Sometimes you can negotiate them down, but if you're not willing to pay that full price, don't waste the seller and your time. Okay, and then you're going to want to try and fill in some blanks from the ad. You're going to want to get some more photos and videos, hopefully from places that prove they've been where they promise the horse has been, or that they had the horse longer than a few weeks or days. For videos, you're going to want to see the horse at a walk, trot, and lope, hopefully with a saddle and without. It can be kind of tricky to get the seller to send this all, so here's a few different ways to ask. Does the horse lunge? Can I see a video? Has the horse competed recently? Can I see a video? Or can you just, you can just ask, can I see the horse working at a walk, trot, and lope? Now, you're still looking for red flags during all this. If the information changes, if the horse is limping at all, or if they don't send any photos or any working videos without the saddle. If the horse is limping, this is a jump ship red flag. They would not send it if that's not what the horse looks on its best day. The others depend on context. A final note for the messaging is to not be a jerk and send 80 trillion different questions in a bunch of small text and demand answers about each one. Here's an example of how you should send your questions. Hey there, I'm looking for, Hey there, I'm looking at your ad for Smokey. Is she still available? I have a couple questions. How long was she doing play days? Does she enjoy a trail? Could she lunge? You mentioned that she's buddy sour. What reactions does she have to being buddy sour? After the seller answers, I would then, in this scenario, ask for videos. Great, thanks so much for answering my questions. Is it possible to see a video of her competing, lunging on the trail, etc.? Thank you. After this set, if something like super important shows up, then you can follow back up. Otherwise, I would just move on to scheduling your first visit. You don't want to overly message, especially because if you could become a pain, the seller does not have to sell you this horse. They'll just move on. There's plenty of other people who want to buy it. So when scheduling a first visit, be nice and request. If they say, no, we don't allow visits to our horses, red flag, this horse isn't the one. Keep moving on. I would also put a specific time that you are regularly available within this test. For example, I would love to schedule a visit and test ride before going any further. I'm usually available Tuesdays. Wait for the seller to respond and try your best to make whatever time they have work. It's very important here just because the seller does not have to sell you the horse. So you're wanting to be the most polite, kind, understanding person while also knowing that if you see any red flags that are on our big do not list, you're stepping out of it. So, once you get the appointment, you will want to make a few different requests. Number 1, do not catch the horse before you arrive. If they have the horse caught, it hides a few things and can point to them having been ridden before. If they reply back and say that the horse is hard to catch, then ask for the following. Do not work the horse before I get there. If the horse is sweaty and obviously been worked, it could be a sign that they're working out misbehavior before you arrive, so you think the horse is super calm. 2, do not saddle the horse. An already saddled horse makes it difficult to tell their body condition and whether they have conditions like ulcers. The seller should have no reason not to say yes. If you arrive and your requests were not followed, then you know they're trying to hide something. The saddling less so. That can be as easy to fix as, can we unsaddle him to see his body condition? When you arrive on the day, then you have to be incredibly deliberate. It is unlikely you can get more than one visit to a horse before you have to make your decision. You may be able to get a second visit, but that is unusual. First things first, make sure the horse is not sweaty or breathing hard. If they are, then the seller's trying to hide misbehavior. If you forgot to ask not to have the horse worked before, then you're going to want to try and first edit it without them working. Wait till after the visit to request this. Don't just be like, we're going to have a second visit because the horse is worked. Wait afterwards and say, we're very interested. Can we have a second visit? I'm willing to put a deposit down. Stuff like that. Add the deposit part afterwards because maybe they'll just let you have it without it. Next up, you'll need to evaluate the horse's body condition. Take photos from both sides of the horse, from the back and from the front. Taking pictures will allow you to see things you didn't notice at first. You can also send these to a vet or a professional to see if they notice anything. You will also want to feel up and down the horse's legs. Make sure to note any bumps, lumps, and ask about any scars or injuries. Other than like itsy bitsy small cuts, horses are huge 2-year-olds who can go 25 miles an hour. Those happen. Make sure to ask if the horse is okay with this. The seller says no, do not do it. Instead, ask about the injuries or ask whether or not they have any injuries that make them uncomfortable. Before you saddle, request to have the horse walked and trotted in a straight line. Make sure to film it where you can see the horse's whole body. If they cannot get the horse to trot on a straight line, request a lunge. Afterwards, it is time to saddle. Have the seller do it or ask frequently if the horse is okay with you doing this. Make notes of the answers / how the horse reacts to the saddle. After watching them saddling them yourself, ask the seller to hop on for a walk, trot, and lope on the horse. Do not get on this horse unless the seller rides first. Now, it's unlikely if the seller is trying to sell the horse that they're intentionally going to toss you onto one that misbehaves super badly, but I've seen it done. Do not get on this horse until you see it properly behaving for the seller. So you're going to want to watch how the horse behaves at the mounting block while you do it. You're going to watch for any small or big misbehaviors. And if it's large, buck, rear, bolt, bite, this is a sign of pain. It's time to pass on the horse. The only thing that is okay is if they spook lightly, then you can move forward and ask whether or not they spook regularly. Make sure you film the walk, trot, and lope under saddle. Once the seller is done, it's time for you to ride. Make sure you are careful. Sometimes owners are such good riders they can make an awful ride look amazing. Notice if you have to pull too hard or if they have a good spot. Stop. Do you have to ask them to calm down or speed up? Ask yourself if you're okay with dealing with these parts of the horse at the ride. The final part is the hardest. It's time for you to decide. Do you want to move forward? Remember the ride, saddling, etc. If you do, it's time for the vet visit. Some people ask me whether or not this is 100% needed, and yes, it is. This allows you to get a professional's opinion on whether or not this horse is lame or going to have any huge issues that will cost you thousands in the long run. So, if you're paying $5,000 and over, then you should be able to get the lameness exam out of the seller's pocket or out of the price. If not, this is out of your own pocket. Doing this now will save you thousands later. Do not skip it. You also have to pick the vet. Do not go to the sellers. They may be friends and will lie to make the horse seem good so that you'll buy it. You also have to be there. Sellers may tell you that it went well, and then it didn't. You may also be wondering what you should be getting at the vet. Most people start and end at a lameness exam. I think it's fine just as long as you're not spending more than $10,000. If you're spending more than that, then I recommend getting an x-ray of the hocks, ankles, back, things like that. Like one of those though, because if you're paying out of the seller's pocket, they're unlikely to want you to get a whole workup for just $5,000. If you're paying in the $20,000 range, the seller should be paying for all the x-rays and they should not say no because it's a lot of money to spend on a horse that could be lame. Remember, a little bit more upfront cost in exchange for thousands later is more than worth it. So if the seller does not want to pay for it, get it anyway. If in the lameness exam, the vet notices something and they recommend to get x-rays or something, yes, say yes because you need to know. If it's an issue that could go away with some work, then you have to decide what to do. If you want to roll the dice and fight for the horse, go ahead. Make sure to ask for an estimate on the worst route and the best. Make sure you can afford both. Do not buy a horse if you cannot afford the worst route. This is just signing the horse up for a life where they'll get passed around and around forever. You can't control what the seller does after you say no, but you can control your action. If the vet visit goes well, it's time to hand it over to the seller and ask how to move forward. The last advice I can give you is to be there. Do not have the seller drive the horse. If you are having a third party pick it up, be there for the pickup. I know people who send the payment and the horse never arrives. That is all for today's episode. Make sure to tune in next week for the intermediate horse search perimeters.